Namaste and Guten Tag. As India celebrates 75 years of its independence and 70th anniversary of diplomatic relation with Germany, Consulate General of India in Frankfurt present a series on Guru Shishya Parampara, a vital part of rich Indian heritage. I, Parth Doshi, an MSc student of Fachhochschule Aachen and President of Association of Indian Students in Aachen, welcome you all to the second part of the series. It's our honor to have Dr. Sandeep Patil here, who is head of Institute of Allgemeine Mechanik and also academic study advisor at RWTH Aachen University. We will talk about his exceptional career achievements and outstanding professional experience and how those experiences can benefit students listening to the session right now. Sir, could you please introduce yourself?
Namaste. It's my pleasure to be part of this series, and first of all I would like to thank you, General Consulate of India Frankfurt and ISA for their great initiative. My name is Sandeep Patil. I did my Bachelor in Mechanical Engineering from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Then I worked for 2 years in the industry, and then I moved to the Stuttgart to do my Masters in Computational Mechanics, which is a commerce. Then I decided to go for the PhD, and then I did my PhD in RWTH Aachen University, which is in the multidisciplinary field. It's been more than 7 years I've been here in RWTH Aachen University. I'm a group leader at Institute of General Mechanics, and we have a small group which is working on the multi-scale modeling and molecular mechanics. And I would be happy to be part of this session, and happy to answer some of the questions which might be very interesting for the students.
That's very inspirational journey. As we celebrate 75 years of independence, how do you see the development in educational sector in India from a foreign point of view?
After 1947, we got independence. I think after that, there has been enormous progress happen in different field of education as well as development, research in India. To name a few, for example, literacy rate, women education, vocational training, these are the things where we improved a lot. However, I would like to focus on the technical education. So if you see, immediately after the independence, we started with 7 IITs. Now we have been working with so many IITs. Recently, in last 2 to 3 decades, we have so many NITs which have been doing fantastic research and really highest quality of work in the development as well as in the research area, where I think most of the time we lack of the fundamental research, where they have been doing great job. Also, I would like to name few of the private universities, for example, Birla Institute of Technology and some of the institutes who have been doing the research and development in the private sector and trying to keep the level of the research in the private sector also. So we have been doing really great in the technical education in the last 3 to 4 decades.
Okay. It is often said that German institutions are more hands-on practical experiences and Indian educational institution focuses more on theoretical aspects. You have had rich experience in being involved in both Indian and German education institution. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you are rightly pointed out that German education system is more disciplined, I would say, and they are too much focused on specific things. However, Indian education system, we are covering not many things, and we are too much into the theoretical knowledge. However, this is very helpful for me, at least when I came from India to Germany, when my master's started. It was very helpful because I learned already so many concepts. Those were useful to understand the advanced knowledge. So I would go one step back and say that our education system is more towards the exam oriented. That's what I think the biggest disadvantage of our education system. But here, I've been teaching some of the courses independently from last 7 years, and I can tell you that whenever I feel like there should be need to the advanced knowledge should be added to the course, I change it. If there's some exam which is I feel like okay, I'm taking this exam or this content of the course, but this is not really up to the standard of the research or development side or industry side, then I do try to change this content according to the time. I think our education system need to be changed with respect to time and give the more focus toward the practical, as well as one has to keep the fundamentals also clear. And the exam system should be, sometimes one has to make an open book. I had an experience from the Stuttgart University that was my first exam, open book exam. That time I really got into trouble because I was carrying so many notes, exercises, so many textbooks, and then I realized that after spending 30 minutes of my first exam, then I realized that okay, I'm just wasting my time because it's not going to help us because it's open book. So one has to learn the concept, one has to understand it, and then go for the exam. And that's what I think missing in our education system. I think that one has to improve a lot.
Yeah, I think educational institution in India should consider that, and that was a very good idea. Is there anything that Indian and German educational institution that can learn or benefit from each other?
This is an interesting question. I mean, as you know, as well as many of the audience probably know that we have a strategic partnership. RWTH Aachen University have a strategic partnership with IIT Madras. Fortunately, I was there in IIT Madras for 2 weeks through this strategic partnership in 2019. And I saw that the quality of research in IIT Madras is up to the really high standard, as like RWTH. So I didn't feel like a difference. I was in RWTH or was in the IIT Madras. So I think this quality of research one has to keep and maintain that throughout the other institutions. I don't have experience with other institutions, but a few of the IITs, they have been doing this kind of high quality of research, and one has to maintain it. Second point, I would like to mention that about the research. More or less, many of the universities and institutions that might be private institutions, they're directly focusing on the development. So the research which is pretty close to the industry. However, I think fundamental research has to happen, and this is, if you do it fundamental research, it's going to add a lot more values in 10 to 15 years. Not immediately, but that has to be happen, and this is what I think missing in some of the institutions. I'm not saying all, but some of the institutions might be that one has to consider and that one has to improve over the time period.
You have mentioned the strategic relation between RWTH Aachen University and IIT Madras. Can you tell us more about that?
Strategic partnership with the IIT Madras and RWTH Aachen started in 1967, the establishment of IIT Madras itself. And over the time period, we have a lot of funding between these two institutions. Actually, at the time of establishment of IIT Chennai itself, RWTH helped a lot to this establishment and to so many things in this progress of IIT Madras. And therefore, we have a lot of fundings in this sector, so strategic partnership. There you can travel to Chennai, as well as so many postdocs, masters students, undergraduate students. They are coming to RWTH Aachen to do their internship, master thesis, postdocs, as well as some of the students are coming from the PhD. We do get every year to couple of students from IIT Madras. This has been going well from last I think couple of decades because of the high funding. I think at the start of 2020, just before the pandemic, our whole delegation from RWTH, including our rectors, so many deans, so many faculty professors, they were there in IIT Madras. That was a huge celebration to happened in IIT Madras to have a big delegation and visiting everywhere in IIT Madras. So I think that's what the bonding between IIT Madras and RWTH Jharkhand University.
Wow, this looks really great. Uh, After earning your bachelor's in mechanical engineering, you have worked briefly at Indian companies. Then in 2008, you decided to pursue your master's outside India and your PhD too. So, what drives you to take the decision of pursuing pure research-based field outside India instead of working at an MNC?
Actually, when I was working in Indian company, those were very nice companies. I worked for 2 years, but in the second year of my work, I was working at a Tata Technical Center. There, I was working in a CAE department, so simulation science. But I felt like I was lacking of a lot of advanced knowledge, as well as some of the areas where I felt like I was not up to that, up to the level of standard one needed to do this work. Then I decided, okay, one should go for the higher education in order to improve yourself, your skills, your concept, fundamental knowledge, and gain the advanced knowledge also. So that's why I decided to go for the higher education, and that time I checked so many universities, and I came to the conclusion that okay, German is the best for the computational mechanics, and especially University of Stuttgart, where I did my masters. And fortunately got admitted there, and then I started my masters. I think good point was I would highly recommend to every student immediately after getting into the master, you try to find out Hiwi job, so which is called as a part-time job in Germany. So if you do the part-time job with one of the professor, PhD, postdoc, then you get to know the good network, and that's what happened with me. I was working with Professor Brian Marquardt when I joined my masters. So immediately within first 2 months, I got into the Hiwi job with Professor Marquardt. That time he was a PD, so it's called associate professor, and he was happy with my work. And then we have been working from Hiwi job till postdocs or group leader. Now he's a director of the Institute of General Mechanics, and I'm a group leader. So this is what happened if you work with sincerely work with one of the professor in Germany. Actually, after masters, in the last semester of master, I got a scholarship, Hilti scholarship, and that's how I had to do my masters in industry, and that's what I wanted to have. So after masters, immediately go into the industry and do my work in industry. I didn't want to go into the academic career. However, working for 6 months, even though I can tell you that Hilti is one of the best company I ever worked. So this is a really nice experience. However, I felt like I was missing late night simulations, late night working. Whenever I feel like I can come to the institute and work in the institute, I was missing all of that. And that's what I felt like, okay, that was the area of my interest. And therefore, I was in contact with Professor Brian Marquardt, so I decided to come back to the academic career. And that time also, I knew that the salary differences, or let's say financial wise, there's going to be a gap between the academic career and industry career. However, I was happy to be to choose this academic field, because you will get to know the so many young students who can give you the out of box ideas. You can work in areas whatever you like. You can perform the activities. You can build a great network with great professors. So I think that's what drive me a lot to go into the academic field, and I'm really happy to that I took that decision at that point of time. And yeah, that's what the journey in the academic career.
So that's very inspiring for the students who want to pursue a research-based field. You are the academic study advisor of 2 courses at RWTH, and you are also director of India office at RWTH, which involves the selection of students for master program. Can you tell us what tasks does this role entail, and what do you look for in a student while selecting him or her for a master program?
Yeah, this is a really beneficial question for the students who would like to go for the master's degree in Germany. Actually, I'll go one step back and say, okay, in other countries like might be US, UK, or any other countries, they specifically focus on the GRE and then grade. But a good thing about Germany is we are focusing overall profile. So we are not just selecting a student based on their grades, because we know that at the end of the day, it's just grade is a number, and we try to focus it on overall profile. Like we focus on extracurricular activities, then we focus on the what are the work experience the student has, what are the internship or the research based publications he has made in his studies or after the studies also bachelor. These are the things counts, and everything has some weight. And if you come with a round of really good profile, then you have really good chances of getting selected. I would like to focus on some of the few more things like CV. I think I found many of the students just take the standard format, put it there, and they put everything what you see on the internet, like C++, Python, Java, Julia, everything. So I think one has to be really specific. If I'm putting something like Python, one should have something like certificate. I have done this certificate in Python. So that's how it will be like more believable that you have done this. As well as I would like to tell you that write down your motivation letter yourself. Don't copy anything. If I read the first line itself, I understood that this is copied from somewhere. So this is I think important things one has to learn, because you are applying for a master's, not for the bachelor. You are done with your basic studies or basic graduation, so you are going for the master's. So you have to be up to the mark in order to get selected into the master's program in Germany.
I think these tips and tricks will definitely help the students listening to us right now. You are also a group leader at Institut für eine allgemeine Mechanik, Institute for General Mechanics in English. Could you shed us some light on what research your research groups are involved in?
Yeah, we have been working in biomaterials. So biomaterials means I can show you something like a spider silk. So I think everyone knows spider. The web coming out of the spider is spider silk. I think another example is nickel. So I think it's mother of pearl. Everyone find this on the seashore. These are the natural materials having extraordinary mechanical properties because they are naturally grown up. And what we are trying to do in my group is we try to understand their mechanical properties naturally. So how they are built up, how their hierarchical structure is. And we try to understand the mystery behind these extraordinary properties. And then ultimately we try to mimic those using the artificial materials. So everything we have been doing is theoretical. However, we have some collaborative partners who have helping us with the experimental techniques and some experimental things so that we can compare and validate our models. But the core idea is try to mimic the natural materials artificially. Because I think if you take the example of spider itself, it is not easily possible that you can take the spider and use it for any application. There are a lot of limitations like extraction, collection, availability is also a major issue with these biomaterials. So therefore, it is the idea of my group is to study those materials artificially and try to mimic those. So this is the first area where I have been focusing on. And the second area is the advanced materials. So for example, aerosols. So this is an example of silica aerosol. So if you see this material, I think you can hold it also. It's very, very lightweight. And it has amazing mechanical properties and physical properties. So if you see the Guinness World Book record, you will find the 7 entries of this material, like lowest bulk density, then lowest thermal conductivity. So it has been a great extraordinary mechanical properties which can be used for different applications. However, there are serious limitations with this metal, like it cannot hold the load. So that's what we have been working then. Then we are adding some fibers and try to improve its mechanical properties and try to make this metal available for many applications. That was the core idea. And in this advanced metal, we have been focusing on silica aerogel, graphene aerogel, then cellulose aerogel. Cellulose aerogel is somewhat, you can see that it's a very stiff, and this is like a cellulose base, so it's biodegradable, so you can use it. The idea is just a solid skeleton, and out of which this water or precursor, these are the liquid stuff which supercritically dried out. So you left with just solid skeleton or network is the remaining. So that's why this material is very interesting for many applications.
Okay. Your work extensively involves research on biomaterials and advanced materials like silica gel, as you mentioned. Could you tell us about how this will affect our lives in future?
Just to give the one example, let's say spider silk. If you see the car crash, if you are moving with 30, 40 speed and there's something obstacle come in between, then there's a possibility of accident, and this is like a breaking of and impacting this passenger or driver or co-driver going to hit the steering in a very short time, let's say 30 milliseconds. So this is like a time where you don't even feel like. So therefore we have airbags. So which is avoiding the forced ejection of the driver or co-driver, or sometimes it help you to head injury and so many things, head trauma, so many things. However, with this airbag, you will have serious problems also, like your head is going to burn, you have neck jerk, and with the old people it's going to be a serious problem, like a neck jerk. And so to avoid that, even fracture could happen because of the airbag. So having advantage of airbag, there are some disadvantage also. To avoid that, we can change the material of the airbag itself. We can have spider airbag. So if you see the spider airbag, there's a lot of dissipation. So if you impact, then there's a motion of the coming back. It's so slow that you can dissipate the more amount of energy. And we have seen that in our simulations. So head injury criteria is the one of the typical concept where they calculate this material is good or not. And depending upon this number, we found that spider silk airbag HIC index is quite low than the standard nylon 66 airbag. So therefore, spider silk can be a potential airbag material in the coming years. As well as advanced materials. These are the materials which you can use it for the many applications, like a electronic circuit where you need to have a thermal insulation. However, you would like to carry some load. Many of the applications where what people are doing, there's just many chemists, they are trying to put the raw material, precursor, solution, try to make the steroid supercritical dried and make the material. Many of them are trial based. So they change the concentrations and they can get the material and they test it and they say, okay, this percentage is very good. What we are suggesting now from the modeling point of view, we are tailor-made the constituents and their percentage, so that you know in advance that, okay, if you add 2% of silica aerogel glass fibers into the silica aerogel, then how much mechanical properties you will get it. So from the modeling itself, instead of doing so many trial and error method, we are designing material itself from the modeling point of view, and then it can be a guide for the chemist or material scientist in order to get this tailor-made simulations which they can consider for their research.
Is there any apprenticeship, internship or master thesis possible at your research group?
There have been so many possibilities to work in my group as well as in any group in IAM, Institute of General Mechanics. What we do generally, we advertise some of them on a notice board, but I think many of the Indian students are listening, so I would like to mention that there are so many DAD scholarships are there, under which every year I invited a couple of students for coming here, which are the undergraduate third semester students. They are coming here. I know that they are coming here for 2 months, and which is a very, very short time period. Nothing happened in 2 months in research. Still, I would like to invite them, and then they can come here, do some research activities, even though they are not fulfilling the milestone what you are going to put it at the first, but they get the opportunity to see the work environment, research environment. They can understand the culture, social life of Germany, and they can decide in near future that they would like to come back again to Germany for the masters or higher education. So there are a lot of possibilities, and for the especially Indian student, I would like to ask you to go to the DAD's website, try to see the different scholarship. This is a undergraduate student internship. You can go for the language programs. You can go for the master thesis also. You can come here for the master thesis. You can come here for the last semester, which is completely sponsored from DAD. There are some other possibilities also to come here for the PhD, postdocs. Just to give an example, Humboldt Scholarship, which is one of the well-recognized scholarship all over the world. It's a Humboldt Scholarship, where you can postdoc can apply for such a scholarship, and you can come here. DAD Scholar, another one for the PhD students. So you will get the funding for the 3 years. You can come here 3 years. You can get the funding. You can completely dedicatedly focus on the research, and you can get your PhD within 3 years. So not more than that. So exactly 3 years you can perform this research activity. So there's a lot of fundings, lot of opportunities possible. You need to just check it out in advance, apply in advance to the professors, to me, postdocs, like me, postdoc, any other institutes. Try to see the possibility of your interest and see the area of interest of the different institutions. So you try to see the combination of this, and then it will definitely work, and you will be here for at least short time.
That will definitely help for the students who want to pursue a master degree in here and probably apply for internships or master thesis. What do you look for in a candidate while selecting during the interview?
For the internship and for the PhD, master thesis and postdocs, what we do generally, we'll try to see it's a track record. So not for the undergraduate, because undergraduate they're just coming, they are just little bit fresh in the science. However, we try to see that where he's coming from, what are the activities he has done or she has done during the first 3 years. We try to see the grade also, and that's more or less for the undergraduate students, not much into the details, because we know that they are just wanting to have a sort of experience of research in Germany. So we don't go into the details for undergraduate. However, we really go into great details with the PhD candidate. While hosting as a host institute, we go into details. We try to see what he has done in the masters, what was the master thesis. I think this is what one has to keep in mind, that Germany is always looking for your master thesis, your bachelor thesis. We generally take this seriously, that your master thesis work has been published or not. It was in which area? Was that help to advances in the field or not? Or was that any routine work? So these are the things quite matters a lot when you plan for the coming here for the PhD or postdoc. So that's what I think we are looking for.
Oh, nice. This will definitely help me personally as well. We see many students pursue MBA after their undergraduate degree. Most probably the reason being difficulties in pursuing research-based field, and also generally believed low salaries for research-based field. What advice do you have for the students who want to pursue research-based field after their undergraduate studies?
Quite a debatable question. Actually, I believe that it's just your area of interest. I knew that before coming into the academic career, what are the salary differences will be. Current salary difference in near future, and what will happen at the end of the career also. However, it is totally depend upon you, that how you would like to see yourself after 10 years or 20 years, and how do you want to see yourself as a satisfied person working in a specific area. I know this trend of doing MBA after engineering. I don't have anything against it, because it is just might be some of them students, however, would like to improve their managerial skill or management skill in order to get the good positions, because having technical background and doing MBA is just add-on and its profile is good. However, the students who are moving towards the MBA after doing the bachelor studies, because of the salary, I wouldn't recommend them to don't do that. I mean, it is not really advisable. It is just what you see for the moment. After 10 years down the line, you will see that, okay, I'm not really satisfied with the work, or what will I do if after the 10 years down the line, if I've done my bachelor and then MBA and I'm not satisfied with what I'm working now. So I think we just try to see yourself after the 10 and 20 years down the line. Don't rush for the decision. Just take the wise decision and think about yourself and not about the near future benefits. I think near future benefits you are not going to get along your lifetime. So just think about it. Academic careers always been the best career what I have seen from my point of view, and there's a possibility that after 10 years of working here in a PhD, I can move to the industry. Even there's a possibility that I can have a 50% of my time to the industry projects. So I can divide my own time according to my interest. I can consider only research-based projects, fundamental research, so I can 100% into the academics. However, I can shift myself to the industry projects and going into the industry after some time. So there is a lot of flexibility here, and it is totally depend upon my interest. However, the person who has done, like let's say, trying to shift to the industry and done something like an MBA after the graduation, then they are getting stuck. And getting stuck in the career is not a good idea. You should have flexibility. If you feel like after doing your bachelor, working in the let's say industry for let's say 10 years, then you feel like, okay, I would like to go for the masters or distance learning masters or PhD, you should keep the option open, and you should not run behind the salary or current near future advantages or benefits. I don't recommend that.
Okay. What type of opportunity exists after completion of doctoral degree in Germany?
I think this is interesting questions. People who would like to pursue the academic career as well as who would like to go to the industry. I just give the example of one of the biggest company in Germany is like BASF. So where they need to recruit the group leader or team leader positions after the 2 to 3 years of postdoctoral experience. So mostly after PhD, it is advisable to do the 2 to 3 years of postdocs, so that you get even though you are in PhD, you are not independent. You generally work with your supervisor, professors, and you try to get all the guidance from your supervisor. Here in postdocs, you can work as a team leader. You can independently handle one or couple of the students, postdocs student, PhD student, master's thesis student, bachelor thesis student. So you get the independent group, and then you will become like a team leader or group leader in any of the industries. So as I was saying, BASF, they are recruiting only the postdocs. So after PhD, immediately you can go for the industry. This is also possible, and many of the companies are recruiting, because then they think like after a couple of years he can be a group leader or team leader, or after a couple of years of postdocs experience you can directly go to the team leader positions. And this is mainly in research and development. Idea is, if you look at the RVDH style of PhD, giving PhD, then you are working on one topic for 3 years or 5 years, 6 years, and end up your PhD. When it comes that PhD defense, you have to do the presentation on a different topics, not on your PhD topic. So this is a topic is completely different than your PhD topic. So that's the idea of having the expertise in any field within a short time. And to handle this kind of things is really getting you added advantage to become like a group leader or team leader or manager kind of position in the industry.
Is it also possible to pursue a part-time doctoral degree alongside a full-time job? Would you recommend it?
In Germany, there's I would say that almost no possibility having distance learning PhD. There's nothing concept like that. However, some of the industry people who has been focusing on their research in industry, but they have a doctor title, so it's like a supervisor from German university. So German university professor handling or supervising that industry personnel. But it is not possible that I would work in an industry and then do the PhD. It's nearly impossible, and I think nobody recommends this. Okay.
Education in Germany is always an expensive way, and also pursuing your masters and doctoral degree could be a long-term affair. How do you recommend to manage your finance during these times?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question because everything boils down to the finance, right? So even though you have a lot of passion, lot of enthusiasm to do your masters, PhD, postdoc, but everything boils down to the finance, and we Indians take this seriously. So we would like to have financial things up to the level so that you don't have a strain on your parents as well as on the relatives. So I think this is true that the financial draining will be there during your studies. I'll just give from my experience that how I managed my financial things. As like all Indian student, I came here with an education loan. As I said in a second question itself, that you just try to find out the part-time job, which will boost your network. You'll get opportunity to work in research. However, it will help a lot to you in order to manage your financial things. I was used to get it like my monthly expenditures through this heavy job. So I was not spending single penny from the education loan. Of course, there are some added expenditures are there, which will come along the line, along the time. But at least you can take that major shock of monthly your accommodations, monthly some expenditures like grocery and other things. You can manage it with a part-time job. So I would highly recommend that you can just manage at least some of your financial things through your heavy job. Okay, so still at the end of the masters, you'll have some financial things to pay back to the bank in India. If you go for the directly to the job, then everything's okay. So you can directly manage your financial things. But if you would like to go for a PhD, and then that time, I think it is important to note that not like in India, it's unlike in India, because in India we have PhD, we have to pay for the fees to the university. I think here you'll get paid for doing your research work or PhD, and this salary is handsome. I mean, if you go for the full time, that salary is comparable to the person who is working in industry and you are doing your PhD. So almost like an equal salary. I would say that 10 or 15% difference, but it's a very good salary, I would say. Now there are different types of PhDs, so like scholarship. So scholarship you will get 60%, 70%, 75%, 50% of the salaries. But you will be done with your PhD within 3 years. I did my PhD with a scholarship, which is 50% scholarship, because I had the opportunity to choose the full-time and scholarship. But the point is, you will be done with your PhD within 3 years. So I have done theoretically 3.5 years. So I've done with the PhD, and then I saved my 2.5 years of my life without spending much on the administrative things. So I would highly recommend that you have to save your time during your academic, let's say during your education. That's for the highest recommendation I would give you. And don't think about too much about the finance, because salary will come from the scholarship also. If you go for the full time, no problem. As well as for the postdocs, you will get really like a normal salary. So I think just to the first part of your masters, first semester, if you don't get the heavy job, then there will be a little bit strain on you. However, there's a bank in India who will provide you the support. But if you start doing the part-time job, might not be 2 part-time jobs, because I used to do 2 part-time jobs, but I would recommend that within first semester itself, you try to make the network you try to approach professors, you try to approach the postdocs, PhD student in order to get the part-time job, and that will be really lot of financial load on your bank or yourself and your parents.
How important do you think are linguistic skills for pursuing master and doctor degree and also social life in general in Germany?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not the right person to answer this question because my German language is not so good. However, I would say that's what I've been not so good with that. However, I'm trying to improve myself. But having German skill is highest importance, I would say. You have to have a German language skill. Might not be the technical German, but having German skill for the social life is very important. So you can mingle with people, you can attend so many social events that help you culturally reach. As well as I would like to add one more point. That let's say you are not really like a language person. You are really not getting in language very quickly. It takes time. I know that my personal experience is the same. That I'm really not that good at languages, and learning new languages, it was difficult for me. So I would say that at least you should have a minimum skills of communications, so that you can survive here. Because if you go out in the market, you need to speak in German. But having conversation level German is not going to harm your academic or your career. You can have a minimum skill, but you can really good at the technical, good at your work sincerity, and then you really get reach to the great heights of your career having minimum skill of language. Still, I would say that please, if you are targeting Germany, please learn German in advance.
Thank you so much for your insights, sir. Your experience sharing is definitely an inspiration for the students who want to pursue master's or doctoral degree in Germany. I would also like to thank Consulate General of India in Frankfurt for arranging the series of the session. Sir, would you like to tell us a few words?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you once again to Consulate General of India, Frankfurt and ISA for this great initiative. I'm sure that this is going to helpful for the student, and for the students who has some specific questions about what we have conversations. Please do contact me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.